A bar tent frame standing among charred ruins, a reminder of the horrible night 4 weeks ago when Abdul Fattah al-Daghim lost his 10-year-old daughter. In the bitter cold, his tent neighbors were trying to light a homemade furnace when the entire tent went up in flames. The fire spread very quickly. There were huge flames and a motorcycle and some fuel exploded. All the tents caught fire. My wife and children were trapped inside. Only 5 made it out. My sister, Yasmin, tried to save our mother and she pushed her out. She told her, "Go, I'll come out right after you." But Yasmin got caught inside and she died. Their youngest daughter, Dala, also suffered severe burns. An aid organization brought the 1-year-old to Turkey for medical treatment. Doctors have sent messages and videos, but the family is not allowed to visit her. The border with Turkey is closed to Syrian refugees. The mother, Fatima, can barely stand it. I hope so much that she'll come back healthy. But I saw the fire. I fear the worst. Tragedies like these happen frequently in the makeshift camps in northern Idlib. Tens of thousands of people are living here in miserable conditions. They lack even basic necessities: latrines, food, heating fuel and medical care. Constant heavy rain has now made the situation worse. People here were cut off from all supplies for days. Many tents were destroyed. Aid organizations have been doing their best, but are totally overwhelmed. The situation is made even worse by the rampant coronavirus. The infection rate in Idlib province has risen dramatically. We've done what we can, and together with other aid organizations and the White Helmets, we've tried to raise awareness about the coronavirus. We've handed out masks and disinfectant. But given the desperate situation, it's not enough. Abdul Fattah's family are simply glad that the aid organization has given them a new tent, some clothing and even a new furnace. But they hardly use it despite the cold. They have no money for fuel and they are terrified of using it anyway. My children and I have a psychological problem in the tent. We are afraid to light the furnace when my husband isn't here. Our children panic and start screaming when they see fire. It's very, very hard for us. When they fled the fighting and air raids, Abdul Fattah thought they would only be here for a few days. But now it's been 14 months. And they are too afraid to go back home to southern Idlib, because the fighting rages on.
Well, for more now, joined by Bahia Zrikam. She's with the Syria Response Office of the Norwegian Refugee Council, and she joins us from Beirut in Lebanon. Thanks for being with us. How would you assess the situation for refugees in Syria right now?
The situation for refugees in Syria is terrible, as the reportage states very clearly. In Syria in general, we are, this year, we are facing 9.3 million people are facing troubles or issues having food on their plate every meal. So it means that, and more than 80% of the population is living below poverty rates. In addition to that, you add the heavy rains, you add the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and you add active conflict in some areas. It makes the situation for the populations very, very difficult and very dire. One of the refugees I have been talking to lately was telling me that the most difficult situation for him is that him and his family don't even have a toilet, and he has been in a camp for the past 5 years. So 5 years without a toilet, I think it's a huge breach to their dignity, and it's something that shouldn't exist.
Are aid organizations managing to get resources to these camps? Because the conditions, as you describe, are very difficult.
So we're managing to get aid to these camps through several modalities. One of them, and the most important one, is what we call the cross-border resolution that is voted by the UN Security Council every year. And we have to call for this resolution to be renewed again in July. Otherwise, we will not have access to these populations anymore. And the current access is already very small, and the funding we have is important, but the needs are so huge because we are talking about more than half the population who needs humanitarian assistance today. So we need to make sure that this access is permanent.
Well, in addition to basic humanitarian assistance, which the need is dire, as you say, what about the pandemic? Because the coronavirus pandemic is also affecting that region. What are the chances that the displaced people in Syria will have access to a coronavirus vaccine this year?
So this is also something that has been and is being discussed and negotiated, and we are trying to get the coronavirus vaccine inside Syria and to provide it for all the populations. But to ensure this access, we need this cross-border resolution to be renewed, like I was saying, in July, because it's our only way to be able to access those populations. And we also need everyone to step in with more funding to make sure that we can provide the vaccine to all the population in northwest Syria, but also in the rest of the country. The other issue is, while the vaccine is coming, we need to make sure that we keep the testing ongoing, that we keep providing the humanitarian workers with all the hygiene kits they need to be able to do their work safely and to protect the populations.
Right. Ms. Zrikam, thank you very much for filling us in there. That was Bahia Zikram with the Syria Response Office of the Norwegian Refugee Council. Now, let's look at some other developments in the coronavirus pandemic. BioNTech Pfizer have withdrawn a bid for emergency authorization for their vaccine in India. Pfizer says it will resubmit the bid with additional information required by the Indian regulator. The U.S. has recorded over 40,000 virus deaths in 2 weeks amid concerns that cases could spike again after gatherings for Sunday's Super Bowl. Mexico has run out of vaccine doses, and no new shipments are expected until the middle of this month, with the country's hospitals at over 80% capacity there. Denmark says it will launch a first version of a coronavirus vaccination passport by the end of February.